All right, what's up, everybody? This is the third episode of Bearded Discussion, your favorite new podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about what is it like to be a modern man in the 21st century. We discuss things such as masculinity, self-care, relationships, sex, and many more. Today with me, I have my good friend Adam Coumas.
Hello, mate.
How you doing? I gotta tell you guys, during this pandemic, during this lockdown, I've been watching a lot of Netflix and more specifically
Porn.
No, not porn. Comedy specials. And as I was watching it, I was watching people like Bill Burr, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, all these established, experienced comedians. And as I was watching it, I started thinking about just you and you as a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And I just sort of wanted to know from your perspective, what is it like being a young professional comedian, stand-up comedian? What is it like, sort of that journey of trying to push through, trying to be successful? Is it hard to sort of break through the walls or go through certain doors, or what is it like? I'm interested in that.
It's tough, and I thought I was making some progress, but that's all been fucking put to shit. This lockdown, man, it's stopped everything. Everything's dried up. Everything's stopped. I know legit comedians, friends of mine, who they make a living out of this. They do nothing else but stand up. Yeah. They've had to get real jobs for the first time in years. I'm not talking about TV people. If you're on TV or you're famous on YouTube or something, you've already got some sort of income. People are buying your merch. People have already seen your tours. You've got more than enough. You can ride this out, right? Yeah. But I'm talking about your average run-of-the-mill salt of the earth comedian who makes a living through clubs. Yeah. A club comedian, right? Mm-hmm. Not an Edinburgh comedian, because if you're an Edinburgh comedian, it's normally you're quite well off normally, and your mummy and daddy can afford to pay your rent. But a proper comedian who actually has to. They make their entire living through doing club spots and stuff. Yeah, that's all dried up. Yeah, and there's no furlough for those people. Yeah. There's no community, and also let's be real with it as well. Comedy is not a respected art form as much as everything else. If you were to put respected art forms at the top, you probably put music, theatre, acting, painting, fucking drawing, doing doodles, right? And then at the bottom you put comedy, right? Because everyone thinks comedy is, dick jokes.
Hobby rather than...
not a hobby, but just they just think it's stupid. They think, it's just some guy telling dick jokes. And
they think that it doesn't take much sort of talent or skill. It's just something that...
Yeah, and they think, and it trivialises stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be dick jokes and other stuff. And, it can be trivial. And there are some people who aren't probably very good at it. But it's also... There's also some people who are incredibly talented, and they're now out on their arse a little bit because they don't know they can't claim any money. This is their living because nobody respects it. If you that's the thing about comedy. It's always for better or for worse, it's always been independent. You'll never get a council funding a comedy program. You might get a council going, we're funding the arts and this art stuff. We're teaching children, or we're doing a life drawing class, or we're doing this, or we're helping develop music in let's say in Croydon, trying to make it a music town. Yeah. No council is going to say, we're funding, we're putting money towards helping someone do stand up.
So would you say that as a person that's sort of in the beginning stages of the comedy journey, would you say that because of all this circumstance and sort of the view that people as a whole have when it comes to this form of art, is it harder to break through? Is it you just running on your own perseverance in the beginning? Yeah. And especially if you're a younger like yourself, is it harder then to sort of go through every stage and get to another stage? And
I think it's easier if you've got money. If you come from money, then it's easier because I'm not naming names, but if you watch,
you can throw some names.
If you watch anyone who's been on Live at the Apollo in the last 2 years, and not all of them, and there's some really good people who are done it off their own bootstraps, but a lot of them, they're quite openly middle class, or they come from a lot of money, and It's nothing against those people.
Yeah.
Good on them. A lot of these guys, these people are really, really funny, but they can afford to fail. They can afford to do loads of gigs, right? If they are tough up for rent one month, their parents can probably bail them out. Sometimes their parents are even paying their rent, right? And I know people who legit said to me, comedians, friends of mine, they've said, "Oh yeah, I don't have to worry about rent and stuff." And it's a luxury that a lot of like working class comedians. I'm not on my soapbox about a working class comedian. Like my mum and dad are working class, but I say I'm probably like, if we're gonna get into the minutiae of it, just like the lower middle, right? But like still everything has to be out of my own pocket. And sometimes if I can't afford to not do, sometimes I can't, if I want to do a gig which might progress me, I can't do that because I can't get the time off work. I need to rely on my job to pay for my bills and that sort of stuff, and pay for my rent, all that sort of stuff. So it's easier if you've got money, especially in the beginning, because then you can afford to take the time. If money wasn't an issue, all you do is, especially starting out, you just gig like crazy. You do 300 gigs in a year. I think, what was it, Jimmy Carr? He did 300 gigs in a year. He had quite a lot of money, and he was able to take a year off and did nothing but gig, and that just gets you good. Right? If you gig regularly, if you're always gigging, you're always getting better. And when you don't have that luxury, because you've got to balance a day job, especially when you're starting out, it becomes harder and harder, and you've got to make increasingly more sacrifices for it. Initially, at first, it's just friends and your time and your weekends. Say goodbye to your Friday drinks or your Saturday meetups and stuff. That's fine, but then it then goes into, right, I'm doing this gig at a club up in Manchester. It's unpaid, it's an open spot, but if I do well there, they'll potentially book me another time on a Saturday bill. Yeah. Probably again still unpaid, but then you're amongst the pros. Yeah. And then if you keep doing those, then you'll get paid, and it's kind of like, I think it's similar to like, I think I was saying this earlier before we started recording. We were talking about how like, I think the UK comedy scene is moving more to what it's like in the States, where you earn fuck all money for years when you first start out, and it's only really the headliners who actually make any money, and then eventually, if you end up doing really well, you stick at it for years and you end up breaking through, then you can actually make some decent money. The UK was always a little bit different. There was always a club scene. There was always, you can make, if you're a decent comedian, you've been going for a few years, you can start making money. That's slowly drying up due to lots more people doing it, so a lot oversaturation. Also, the clubs are shrinking, and a lot of clubs are shutting down. Like Jongleurs, it's a club, that big comedy club chain that shut down recently. That was a big hit to the scene, and a lot of these clubs are drying up, and especially now with this coronavirus, like a load of comedy clubs are now under threat. If you're listening to this podcast, a really good club which is currently under threat is the Bill Murray, which is part of Angel Comedy. The Bill Murray Comedy Club, it's been open for a few years. They're currently being shut down. I think they've got a Kickstarter to try and save them, because they've still got to pay rent.
Do you know what sort of Kickstarter it is? Yeah,
it's a Kickstarter to help pay their rent. So if you
do you know like how listeners can sort of
how you can find it? Yeah, if you want to help, if you're a fan of live comedy and you want to help keep it going, just go onto Kickstarter and just type in the Bill Murray or Angel Comedy, and it will come up. Okay. And they're trying to basically cover their rent, because they've got to pay a total of $6,000 a month. Wow. Just to keep the pub open, because they've got their own little venue. Yeah. And they can't get a deferred payment, or they can't get a mortgage holiday like a lot of us can do. Yeah. They've got to still pay that, and they're not getting any money in. So they're legit probably going to go under unless we can get some funding to get them through. So, but that's just a prime example of how the circuit's contracting, and it's affecting every business, right? Yeah, absolutely. You were mentioning earlier what Argos is closing down a lot of its big stores. Yeah, Argos is
closing down, Debenhams, and like all these big stores are closing down because of what's going on right now.
And these are legit businesses who operate for profits. And then you take that and you think about a comedy night, a comedy club. Like, how many people have ever seen live comedy? Yeah, fuck all, right? Like, I think there was a statistic saying that, I think it was more people go do 10-pin bowling than they do see live comedy, which is weird. Like, don't get me wrong, if you watch live comedy, it's fantastic. Like, you're a very special niche, and I love people who the comedy club people who go to comedy clubs and they're comedy fans. They are the best people. Yeah. To me, they're the best. They're just turned on. They just switched on. They know exactly what they're talking about, and they're great. But they are a niche, and it's like, so the circuit in general is definitely going under some stress, and I think it's definitely making it harder than ever to survive off this.
Yeah.
And once they eventually lift these restrictions and stuff, it's not going to go back to normal. They're going to.
It's definitely going to take a while before people decide that. Yeah. Oh, let's go to a club and.
Let's go to a club. Let's go to a comedy club.
Let's go to a place where there's just a bunch of different other people.
Yeah.
And because of all that social distancing and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's going to be very weird, and people want to get out of the house as well. Like the last thing people want to go to do is go into like a dark basement and hear one person talk. They're going to be wanting to get out, going to beer gardens, getting pissed or whatever. But I don't know. We'll see.
I'm also interested from your perspective, from a person that's sort of on the inside and going to different clubs, gigging consistently, and sort of doing that passion of yours. Is age an issue in the comedy scene? Like, is it like, if you look at a film industry, for example, age is an issue, especially for women.
Right.
If an actress is older, she all of a sudden gets less sort of offers, less roles, or she gets put into a box or something like that.
I think
is that an issue in the comedy as well?
There was a statistic, wasn't it? I think it was like every job in Hollywood for women over the age of 40 or over the age of 50, they all just go to Judi Dench.
Yeah, probably.
And Helen Mirren. They're the only two women who are allowed to act.
Meryl Streep.
Oh yeah, and her. I don't know if she's human though. But like, all jobs. Those are the three women. They get all the work. Yeah, no one else. They don't leave it. Maybe it's their fault. No, I think with comedy, by and large, I think it's the reason why I gravitated towards it was because to do well in stand up or in comedy, you don't need to be young, and you don't need to be good looking. And I was like, cool, sweet,
2 tick boxes checked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got a bunch of time, and I'm definitely not your fucking Ryan Gosling, so I'm fine, right? Unless you've never seen me before, then I'm really good looking. Until you start recording these, I guess. But yeah, I don't think it's not, age isn't really an issue. Maybe slightly more for women. I think maybe age might be a slight issue, and that just comes down to like inherent sexism and stuff. But I don't know. One of the funniest people on the UK circuit right now, Sarah Millican. Okay. She's acting funny, not because she's good looking.
Yeah.
Micah McIntyre, funny. He's not a good looking guy. Yeah. Mickey Flanagan, ugly as fuck, but he is so good, so funny. And that's the thing that I liked about comedy. And I think the reason I like about it, it's pretty much always on merit. Mm-hmm. You can't auto tune your jokes.
Yeah.
So funny is funny, and I think that does translate between that does translate to as long as you're funny, you can get work.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's no time limit on it. Yeah. So I think it was Dave Chappelle. He described it as compared to like fighters, because we're both fans of UFC and boxing and stuff, right? Yeah. They were saying fighters normally have a finite lifespan, maybe 10 years of greatness if you're lucky. He described as comedians being like a fine wine. We just get better with age for the most part.
Because you just get more experience over the years, and all of, like with your skill and talent, you're just able to convert it into like just some funny shit.
Unless your brain goes to shit, but unless you get that, nobody really wants to hear experiences from a kid.
Yeah. Because you don't really have any.
No, exactly. And you see these young comedians, and they're very young, like 17, 18.
I remember you actually reminded me, I was watching some interview with Eddie Murphy, and he said first sort of gig that he did, he was like 13 or 14, and he was really good at impersonating, and so his first gig was him impersonating Richard Pryor.
Right.
And because he didn't have any experiences of like life experiences of what to talk about, he essentially just talked about just taking a shit with Richard Pryor voice.
Oh wow.
But you just reminded me of it, essentially.
It's
like
true,
obviously if you're young, you don't have enough experiences to then make it into a set or into a joke.
Yeah. You don't have anything to talk about. You you don't have the authority, and people can tell. You can normally tell if somebody's naive and they haven't been in the real world for a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's if they haven't been around and they haven't experienced or seen a few things, like it's fairly obvious.
Yeah.
And you automatically find that person less engaging. I mean, that's me being completely biased. I mean, you don't have to be like that. You know, I've seen some very good absurdist comedians who just don't do anything. You know, they just do random things like, you know, and it's just funny for the sake of being funny. I'm trying to think of the name. Spencer Jones. I think his character name is the Herbert, and his whole act is. He's not young, to be fair, but like his whole act is just doing absurdist comedy, and he has props, and he makes his body go into weird shapes.
Wow.
And his whole stuff is like he makes funny sounds like and it's just hilarious. And it's nothing to do with age or politics or sex or anything.
He's just sort of experienced grinding over the years and
he's
sort
just
of being
he must have just
developing yourself as an actor.
And he's just funny for the sake of being funny, you know. So you know there is that. Yeah. I think if you standard, you know, comedian who's talking about life experiences, stories, and stuff like that, you are better with age.
Is it also the case? I remember, I was watching one of the episodes of like Joe Rogan Experience, and I remember him saying that it almost seems as if comedy was getting all the sort of like, for lack of a better word, just messed up people, or people that experienced hard stuff in their lives, and they are able now to sort of convert it into comedy.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the case in the UK scene as well? Just sort of not people that are like privileged or born with a so-called silver spoon, but people that the harder your life was, the better comedian you are.
I mean, it's interesting because, you know, I'd say that's probably true for American comedians and American stand-ups.
Okay.
And obviously, I'm not promoting that you need to have a hard life and have depression to be funny.
Of course,
you don't need to do that, you know, because that's almost saying, you know, you need to put yourself through trouble to be funny. Yeah. But you know, you listen to Richard Pryor, you know, and the stuff that he talks about.
Yeah.
Wasn't he like born in a brothel, or his mum?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, his mum was a stripper.
And he had a fucking hard life.
Yeah.
You know, but he turned it into comedy. Bill Burr, all these comedians have gone through like real tough. Joan Rivers as well. So shit she would talk about is so good, and she was brutal. She was talking about her husband's death and this death. Like, it's all about pain and making it funny, and that's, to me, that's the most interesting stuff. I think the UK scene is quite a bit different, actually. You know, when I think of the UK scene, don't get me wrong, you've got people who are, you know, really good like you. You've got Frankie Boyle, you've got Jimmy Carr, McIntyre and stuff. But I think for the most part, you've got it seems to be increasingly more and more. It seems to be like, I don't want to say it, but kind of like posh boys who've gone through Cambridge Footlights and they've never had a real job in their life. Yeah. They've got a lot of money. They've gone to university. They've got their degree, and they've done their comedy stuff, and they've just miraculously got a career in comedy, and they've never had a real job. They've never done anything, and it's all just being, and they embrace it. Yeah. You know, I think Jack Whitehall is a very fucking funny guy, but he admits like he's never really had a proper job before he ended up becoming big, you know, and he's incredibly posh and all this sort of stuff. And it's funny, but that seems to be more of the swing in the UK compared to the States. And I think, you know, with the exception of like, you know, you get someone like Mickey Flanagan, he is genuinely funny, and he's, you know, he was like, he didn't start stand up till he was 29, which is kind of unthinkable now when you think about it. Like, 29 would be too late to start. Well, at least that's what you think. Yeah. But he was like a fishmonger, right? Mm-hmm. Like a legit fishmonger. That's what he did. Yeah. And you kind of think, oh, that's the guy I want to listen to. What does the fishmonger have to say about this subject? Yeah. And that's why he's so funny. Whereas I think now there's increasingly a swathe of people they've listened to comedy. They've watched a couple of Monty Python films or sketches, and they think, yeah, I can do this. And you know, it's that. But then increasingly they seem to all have the same sort of narrative and the same problems, i.e. they don't really have any problems. You know, they're just talking about, oh, isn't it frustrating when your delivery doesn't come on time? And it's like, all right, well, I'm not interested in that, mate. You know? You know.
I'm also curious, like, from your perspective as a person who obviously knows other comedians and is hanging out with other comedians and is in the middle of it all. From your perspective, if you look at the same journey, and if you look at a guy, you have a guy and you have a girl, is it harder from your perspective? Is it harder for women to sort of push through the boundaries and get, for example, if you had the two exactly same journeys, is it harder for women from your perspective to get to the same stage?
I don't
or sort
know.
of push through?
I don't know, man. It's like, it's weird even talking about that, because I can't talk about.
I'm only asking it because I know and I assume that you have female comedian friends, so yeah, I'm just sort of curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just preface it by saying, obviously not being a woman and not having those experiences, I can never say what it's truly like to be a woman. Yeah. Going through that exact experience, because the last thing I'd want is somebody who is in that position. They're going, well, that's rich. Somebody, a man saying that's the opinion. But from my conversations with women who are going through that or going through this, it seems to be a mixture of, it can be in some ways harder and sometimes it can be a little bit easier. Yeah. Like, it's the same. Like, I see this in terms of like the sex divide. I see it as the same as with race. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same as race. I think, just the same way, like, basically when you think of a comedian, and I don't know, maybe this is me being conditioned, but when I think of comedian, I think of straight white man. Okay. Yeah. That's what I think of a comedian. Mm-hmm. But then you list all the comedians you like, and you kind of think, oh, okay, no, there's loads. Of course, you can be any different colour you want. You can be any different race. You can be any different gender. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. But that's the bog standard comedian. That's what at least in my head. And I think why maybe I've been sort of shaped by my environment to think that, whatever. But that's what I initially think, right? Yeah. And I've definitely seen, like with women, I've definitely seen some interesting things with women. Like there's for example, that you see quite a lot of all women lineups, like exclusively. Okay. Like it's like women only shows. Funny Women is a good example. There's a show called Funny Women, a competition Funny Women. It champions women, which I think is fantastic. Women only allowed, and it's like, it's all about women championing women being funny, and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And men aren't allowed on that bill. Okay. So it's kind of like somewhat biased towards women, but then you can say the reason why that exists is because there's a lot of bills where women aren't on there at all. Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, like there's not, as far as I know, there's not a single club or lineup that says women aren't allowed. That would be immoral. If there was a single club that said women aren't allowed, yeah, only, of course, yeah. It would be on the news. People going, oh, yeah, this is discrimination. But saying that, a lot of fucking clubs de facto have no women on the bill. I'm talking big clubs. Yeah. You just go on there and you're going to go, oh shit, there was no women? Yeah. No women available for this one? Yeah. You just happen to get 3 guys or 4 guys. And it's the same with race though as well, right? Yeah. Like sometimes you kind of go, and like, I think sometimes there'll be no black guys, no mixed race guys. I mean, I get on because I can tick a box to some extent. I mean, people look at me and they're kind of, where the fuck are you from? Yeah. And then when they hear me, I go, oh, he's British, but it's half Greek, half Pakistani, whatever. But it's like, I think that's the case. I think there is a mixture. Like, you kind of think, oh well, if you look at Mock the Week, the panel show, they have a quota where they have to, at least one of the people have to be women, at least one of the people. And part of you kind of thinks, oh well, does that mean that some of the women they have on there aren't going to be very funny because there always has to be one? But then you kind of think, well, oh shit, well of course it should be 50-50, right? Yeah, yeah. It shouldn't be just 1 in 5 or 1 in 6, whatever it is. It should be 50-50. Yeah. I've definitely seen, and some of my friends who've admitted, like, when they've just started out, maybe they've done like 50 gigs, sometimes 30 gigs, which is nothing, by the way. If you've done 50 gigs, fuck off. It's like, there's nothing. 50 gigs sounds like a big number, right? But if you've done 50 gigs, that you don't know shit. And that's not even me being bigoted. Speak to anyone, any comedian who's been going a while. 50 gigs is nothing. But
don't let it discourage you. Just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Do 51 at least. Jesus. But when I did 50 gigs, I was thinking, 50 gigs, ready for my own show now, right? Yeah. I'm ready. Where's my fucking sitcom, right? Yeah. And you don't realise. So, but I know people who've done 50 gigs and they've been picked up by an agent and they've been given fucking, they've been put on big clubs and everything else, and they're not ready. And then they've sort of said to me, "I actually, I think looking back on that, I wasn't actually ready."
Yeah.
But they've been pushed through because they've shown maybe they've got a good type 5.
Maybe tick some boxes or something like that. Yeah.
Not even that, but just like they've got a good type 5 minutes, and they nailed that. Yeah. And then somebody who's someone who thought, oh, that's great, I'll put them on for my club, I'll give them 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And their 20 minutes bombs.
Yeah.
And then they're no longer booked for that club. And then people who see that comedian who goes, oh, I don't like that, I don't think women are funny, point is that no, it's because that particular person was picked up when they weren't ready. They've only done 50 gigs, they've done fuck all, right? But then I don't know, it's a weird balance. It's like, I always think of it as like primary school teachers. Like when I was working in a primary school, I worked in a few primary schools before I started my current job. I was working as a SEN teaching assistant, working with kids with special educational needs. I went to 4 primary schools. I sat in the staff room for like all of them. I think I must have seen about maybe 3 men spread across all of these schools. Just 3 men. That was it. It was just women only in the schools, and I don't know why women tend towards gravitate towards primary school teaching. And I don't know, is it only women hired? Are they going to hire diversity, whatever it is? It's just it just seems to be one example where there is a lot more women doing that job than men. And comedy at the moment is, I think it's changing slightly, but it seems to be there's a lot more men doing it. Go to any comedy lineup, we run any night, even the night that I run. Yeah. A Vauxhall Comedy Club, we get hundreds of applications. I'm talking, we probably get 1 woman for every 20 men that apply.
Okay.
Or 20 guys, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the club runs like 5-6 nights a week. And you don't want to have that same woman on 6 times, so undoubtedly you end up having unbalanced lineups where there's far more men than women.
It almost seems to me from what you're saying that on one hand, comedy as an art form or as a scene seems like this just loving, embracing place where you can, no matter whether you're old, white, young, woman, man, whatever, you are embraced by the industry and the people in it. But then on the other hand, it sounds like you still have some sort of invisible divide or sort of
there is
hypocrisy in a way.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can only talk from my experience and from the conversations I've had, but there's definitely, I wouldn't say if it's necessarily harder or difficult. Again, it's the same thing with race. Like if you're funny and you're slightly different, if you're not, your average bog standard white guy. It's funny. You hear some comedians saying, "Oh, I'm a white guy on TV." Do you know how hard it is for just a straight white guy to get on TV? I think Finn Taylor, very fucking funny comedian, he talks about it. He did this on the roast battle on Comedy Central, and he was like saying, "Do you know how fucking funny I have to be to get on TV? A straight white man, I have to be fucking funny to get on this." You probably just ticked a few boxes, and it was really funny. And you kind of think, oh, I kind of see it from that point. But then also you kind of think, well, no, actually as well, because fuck you, because actually there's, out of 20 people, 19 of them are straight white guys, and you've got one woman. And sometimes you see like one woman, if she's black, cool, don't need a black guy on. Just like that's. Like, I'm not saying that's what I do, but that's how some of the people work. That's how some promoters work, man. They go, oh, I can't have you on. I've already got a black guy. I've already got an Asian guy. I've already got. Oh, have you do one-liner jokes? I've already got a one-liner guy. Yeah. And that's kind of. I've already got a gay guy. I've already got. That's how some of these promoters operate.
Yeah.
And it's funny. That's kind of how it is, and that's why you have this. This segregation, you have the funny women, and then you've got this, what is it? You've got Live at the Apollo, and then you've also got this BBC Asian Comedy Network.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just Asian. I don't know what it is. You've just got Asian comedians going up doing shit. Like a few of my mates have been on there, really fucking funny guys. A good mate of mine, Jamie D'Souza, he's been on there, really funny. Don Biswar's really good, funny guy. Shiraz Youssef, Raoul Kohli, all fucking funny guys just put on there. But there are some people on there who aren't funny, and they're just on there because they're Asian. You're gonna go, has this person never fucking done a joke in their life?
Yeah.
So they're mixed in with some shitty people. And also that show, the host, I don't know what he does. I don't know if I don't know if anyone, but I don't know if he's a radio host or something. But he's not funny at all, man. He's not a comedian. I think he's maybe he's just a bald guy who talks loud. He does not. But he's the main guy. The host, like, you would never get somebody on Live at the Apollo who's not funny as the host.
Yeah.
Whereas that show, it's okay because fuck it, it's just the Asian show.
Yeah.
Like that's how I saw it, man.
Yeah.
You know, being half Asian myself, I'm looking at that going, why has nobody thought about that? Why is it okay for the main? If you're the face of the Asian comedy show, why are you not expected to be funny? Like, that's not even me being harsh. He doesn't tell any jokes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so. But then there's that segregation. So I don't know if it's easier or harder. I think it's obviously definitely different. And I don't know whether this is sexist or not. I think there's definitely enough sexism in the industry to you'll probably get further if you're better looking as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I think that's the thing. Again, there are exceptions to the rule. There are really funny women who aren't, you know, particularly good looking, as it should be, right? You don't have to be fucking good looking in comedy. That's the thing. That's the reason why I like it. Yeah. But there are definitely some women who are. Maybe they're not as funny, but they're kind of good looking, so they just get championed, and it's like, oh, they have everything.
Yeah. So sort of like in conclusion, almost
it's the same in anything, man. Like if you like any industry, in whatever industry you want to get into, if you want to go be big in fucking finance, and this is men, women, gay, straight, black,
Absolutely.
white. If you're a good looking person, you're going to do better.
Oh yeah.
You're not gonna. You'll be able to work half as hard as the ugly git next to you who has to fucking put in the hours. But I don't mind being an ugly git. I don't mind, man. You know, but that's
just
the
sort of
rules
like,
of life, isn't it?
I'm guessing just like in conclusion, it's just like grind, work on your craft, develop yourself, and.
Unless you're good looking, then you just smile.
If you're good, eventually.
If you're listening to this podcast and you are good looking, fuck you. No, seriously.
With all due respect.
Seriously, fuck you.
You just like eventually you're just gonna get there. It's just all about perseverance and sort of grinding at your craft, and there is. Obviously, not everyone is gonna get there, but unfortunately,
no. Sometimes, fortunately, yeah. Some of them you don't want to get there. There's some people who are absolute shit.
Just keep grinding, guys, and just keep developing yourself and
unless
persevering.
Unless you are shit, then do give up. You're just taking
or just have a plastic surgery and be better looking.
Yeah, just, you know, if you are shit though, and just do stop. You're just taking up valuable space.
We're just joking, guys.
I'm not joking. I'm not.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in.
We signing off. We signed off with that. Oh shit! I wouldn't have been as horrible. That was. I think we're going to move on to the topic. Oh no! If you're signing off with that, no. If you are shit, you know, keep going, man. Maybe you'll get better.
It's not coming from a place of heart, so.
If you're signing off with that, I can't sign off with me being an arsehole.
No, you can. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, man.
How can people find you again? What are your socials?
You can find me on social media. Just type in Adam Coumas. Coumas spelled Coumas. Find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Not on TikTok. But yeah, anyway.
Thank you very much, all. See you next week. Take care.
See ya.